So we're limited on time today, Lindsey. We appreciate you breaking this here. So can you give us a boiled-down synopsis of the information in total, and then over the hour we'll go through different facets of it in more detail?
Alex, thank you for letting me be with you. I contacted the Mr. X of my book, The Energy Non-Crisis, for the truth of what really happened and is happening. He was willing to tell me everything. And what he told me, I knew that the Alex Jones Show is the only place that I can get this information out to the masses quick enough before they can stop it from being given. He basically told me what happened and what is happening and what is going to happen in the Gulf of Mexico oil gusher.
Well, Lindsey, I'm almost holding my breath. I almost don't want to know, but tell us what he said.
Well, first of all, what people are going to hear on your show today is catastrophic. I beg of them to get a pencil and piece of paper and take notes and send this program to every person you know. The people of America must know the truth about the Gulf of Mexico oil gusher because the oil is not, I hope you're hearing this word, the oil is not the greatest danger. That black stuff in the water, what comes up with the oil is what is deadly. The oil itself only destroys wildlife and fish and oysters and shrimp and the pristine white beaches and the marshlands and the coral reefs. What comes out with that gusher is causing the death of humans and unborn babies. And I'm going to give the details of this today exactly as was given to me by the Mr. X of my book, The Energy Non-Crisis. And please, folks, believe me, this is so catastrophic that I have never had anything like this in my years to ever come my way.
Well, again, this is a former oil company CEO, and you've certainly got good intel from him before when fuel was at $55 a barrel. In early 2008, you talked to him, and he said it was going to go up to 150. It did do that. People laughed at you at the time. I hope he's wrong about this, but we'll get your breakdown of this on the other side. Then we'll talk to Terry in Ohio, Gary, John, Matt, Mike, and everybody else. Everybody stay there. We're going to get to you coming up. But first, Lindsey Williams on the other side. Well, Lindsey Williams has made predictions that have come true time and time again, just like other analysts we have on, like Gerald Salente yesterday. But this isn't really somebody analyzing, though he's a smart guy. This is a former oil company CEO that Lindsey worked with for many years, that is a globalist, that's a good source of info, and so it's some insider info, and so he's going to give us a synopsis, then I'm going to take some calls, then he's going to flesh it out in more detail. But Lindsey, they have said a lot of the workers are getting sick who are cleaning this up. I thought it was because of the dispersant they're using, which they admit is much more toxic than crude oil. I know some toxic things come out of certain types of wells, especially deep wells. But you were telling me, and now even the EPA today, you were trying to get a hold of me last week, but here you are now. Now the EPA has come out and said, yeah, there's a bunch of other toxic stuff coming out in this 500,000 gallons a day. And people have noticed a lot of times black isn't coming out of the hole, brown and green and of course, from undersea cameras, it distorts the colors, but other stuff other than oil clearly is coming out, and people are saying, is it a mud volcano? What is it? And now there's two other fissures they've confirmed miles away leaking. And we know sometimes, like in the Beverly Hillbillies, it's fiction, but Jed Clampett shoots at a squirrel, and up from the ground came a bubbling crude Texas tea, black gold. So in a lot of cases in the U.S., La Brea tar pit in L.A., oil comes up on its own on the seabed. So did they get into some mega fissure or something? Break it down for us from your inside sources, exactly what's going on here, Lindsey Williams.
Alex, please allow me to give just a very brief background to what happened in the Gulf of Mexico.
Sure, you've got the floor. And then we're going to get a call from somebody who says they're a Halliburton insider. Go ahead.
Okay, in 1970, the Russians drilled, they're called ST3 wells, an exploratory well which finally reached a staggering world record depth of 40,230 feet. Since then, Russia and their major oil company, Yukos, have quietly drilled 310 successfully deep wells, putting them into production. And last year, Russia overtook Saudi Arabia as the world's largest single oil producer and is now set to completely dominate global oil production and the sales for the next century. What they found was abiotic fuel when they got to oil, when they got to that depth. Now, please write this down. abiotic oil. It is from the chemical process that's taking place in the heart of the earth, and as a result, the textbooks on oil are going to have to be rewritten because it is not a fossil fuel, and there is no such thing as peak oil, and the shallow oil wells of Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Mexico are replenishing from these deep sources. Now, Russia had sense enough, and please notice this word, it's emphatic. Russia had sense enough to drill their coal SG3 well on the land, not in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, what is happening in the Gulf of Mexico? I contacted Mr. X, and he said, here's what happened. What I found out is frightening. I mean, it scares me. It appears that British Petroleum, BP, not an American oil company, it should have never been allowed to take place. Our government made a horrible mistake. They allowed British Petroleum to try to do what Russia did and drill a super deep well, not on land, but too stupid. BP was so stupid as to try drilling in the ocean, offshore, on a floating platform. Are you catching all of these words? This platform is controlled and kept in place by sophisticated GPS equipment in the Gulf of Mexico in water that's 5,000 feet deep.
Yeah, it's got big robotically controlled jets and propellers, just like cruise ships have to keep them from rocking. It has a similar system. It's firing. I think they call it an azipod system to keep it in place.
Yes. Now keep in mind, 1 mile is 5,280. They went down 5,000 feet in water, and then they began their drilling, and here's the depth they went to. This is right from BP's. Now, there are some people in BP that are so concerned for human beings and love our nation to the point that they have told me the story. I had 2 BP informants along with my Mr. X of Energy Non-Crisis. Now, they drilled between 25 and 30,000 feet deep in 5,000-foot water. That means that they went somewhere between 30 and 30,000 feet. This is what is called a super deep well. They hit something so catastrophic and unexpected that they could not contain it.
And the news has now admitted that 3 hours before, they had executives and engineers and petroleum geologists rushing out there on helicopters because they knew something was about to happen.
That's exactly right, and it did, except it was much worse than they ever thought for. Now, let me state very emphatically, this positively is not a conspiracy. They did not intend for this to happen. This is an accident. They hit a strata of oil at such high pressure that it burst all of their safety valves. The pressure behind the oil is so high that it destroyed the maximum efforts of human science to contain it. And at Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, for instance, the oil is in the ground at approximately 1,500 pounds of natural artesian pressure. And when I was chaplain there, I watched many oil wells being brought in. The very first thing that they gave in an oil well at Prudhoe Bay was the flow rate of the wellhead. The second thing they would always give immediately is the pressure, the artesian pressure coming up with that oil. Have you ever noticed, and now you can think of this for a moment, Alex, nowhere, no media, nobody has told anything about the well.
No, that is the
pressure.
first thing they do is they get a well reading on its pressure, and we haven't heard what pressure it's coming out.
They don't dare tell what pressure it came out because in the Gulf of Mexico, the BP oil well, what they have announced is so different than what really is.
But see, that fits in with the fact that there's other fissures miles away that it's coming up with such pressure, like a water hose going into the dirt can burrow. It's coming up from below and blasting up almost like a volcano, creating other fissures. But we're going to find out from a fellow that says they're a petroleum geologist just in a moment. But please continue, Lindsey.
Yes, keep in mind that the tire on your automobile is 35 pounds per square inch approximately. If you were driving a big tractor-trailer rig, you'd have 100 pounds per square inch, PSI. A reliable source estimated to me with BP that the Gulf of Mexico oil gusher hit a wellhead pressure between, you ready? I mean, this is astronomical. They hit a wellhead pressure of somewhere between 20,000 and 70,000 pounds per square inch. This is beyond human technology to contain it. There are many safety devices on that well. It blew every single one of them.
Is that why the government's now saying they may use a nuke on it?